structured in terms of molecules, where they group H3O7 with a free radical ion. That's 3 water molecules. They're clustered with a free ion. That's Willard water. And then you have Jerry Pollock in the 4th phase of water, where you have hydrogen peroxide with a 3rd hydrogen molecule that joins to its H3O2. Now, water has many different phases. Phases on Mars, quite different. And what we're learning now is that copper and carbon have similar. You have the fullerene thing. That would be my next set of comics. After I taught them structured water in about 7 different comic books, then I would move to fullerenes, showing how carbon does the same thing. Carbon bonds with itself so it forms nanosheets. However, carbon also, when you have 60 molecules, forms a complete ball. And the spacing between the molecules is 1.4 nanometers, just wide enough to take a single water molecule. And when water touches anything, it has memory, which means it's completely surrounded, and that's what makes fullerene the best antioxidant the world will ever know. It will go in and take out radiation. The Ukrainian studies, they made fullerene waters, and they gave lethal doses of radiation to rats, and 95% of them survived. Put deuterium inside it. Now you have a weapon, because Lockheed developed a teleportation laser with Carnegie Mellon on a trigger mechanism. And what you can do is you have that's a new weapon being deployed everywhere. It's a tactical thermonuclear fusion bomb using carbon and deuterium. And when you watch Building 7 fall in free fall, and a 1,000-foot, 17-foot steel beam falling and dissolving into vapor, that is where it was first deployed as a beta. And now Soviets have that. It's using it in Golan Heights everywhere. And the bad news is the precision on that one is 1.4 nanometers. Every single thing we do has a good side and a bad side, because that's what man is, polarized God. And when I say that, God's everything. And what man does, you look at a fence over there and you say, is that a white fence or a black fence? You say, well, it's white, I can see it. But you can't, it's a metaphor. You cannot see the other side of it. And so the correct answer is yes.
Well, how does yes do with counterfactuals in causality or the philosophy? You know, how do we use that in quantum theory? Because teleological future causes under classical causality.
Here's the bad news. Quantum mechanics is no longer useful. And what we've gone to is a more holographic system of information rather than space and time, which are constructs.
Is that modal realism? Or what would you...
Yeah, well, here's the bad news. Information is not what you think it is either, because there is a theorem in information theory that states if you have enough information to ask a coherent question, you have enough information to answer it. The answer is contained in the frame of the question, because it is the way information folds down into or out of itself. And what I've done...
Well, is that an analytical truth based on philosophers, though? Do you think that's analytic truth that's universally held by philosophers?
Yeah,
is that what we're talking about?
Christian on it. I don't know how to respond to that. What I can tell you is that physics and religion are opposite ends of the same brain. That's why you have two of them. That's why the sun has a cavitation. And that's why our black hole has a white hole somewhere else. That is a way of looking.
We have to defer to ourselves? Is that it's a philosophical question from central to peripheral, maybe, or we observe ourselves, and it does feel like that we have an inner observer.
Well, here's the deal. You know, they equated me as the real Fox Mulder, and I'm going to state right up the gate, truth is not out there. It's in here. It's inside you. And the truth is different for each of us, and that is the wonder and glory of the diversity of man. I've watched whale, which are different, sing a song just like the American Indian. The Indian, American Indian calls it medicine. It is the song and dance of their forefathers. It's their history. And that's why the whale songs are identically the same and uniquely different from one whale to the other. They're singing medicine, history. And it is kind of like in the movie Enemy Mine. There is truth in all of this. And that's where, and it's an instinct. It's not logic. The upper brain, the one we call the mind, is there to make all our beliefs true. I wouldn't have seen it. I hadn't believed it. It's a tool to change reality. Why? Because it is a four-dimensional hologram, 5 space. And that means you slaters, every single reality is available, predicated on which part of the brain you're going to work from. Wernicke correction, the Mars Project, is just opening the first of many, many doors. We have not even begun. The study of altered states as an advanced form of physics is the latest in all of that. You watched a woman rip a car door off, save her daughter. Adrenaline did not make the bone in her body stronger than steel. How does that work? The only conclusion or assumed truth is that the laws of physics change in these different altered states. And what we need to do now is begin a map of ontology like they did in the Upanishads in previous epochs. They called those the jhana states, or different states of cosmic consciousness. And there were 8 of them, and that's why Larry had 8 in his neurologic circuits. So I use those as gateways. There's a physical, emotional, intellectual. Intellectual is where you distinguish a chair from a couch. And archetypal, next one up, fourth one up, that's where I am you. You are me. And I am the walrus.
Well,
now we've got.
Well, do we do neutral monism? But, that would consist of, are we our mind rather than everything else exists in our mind? I guess you would call that panpsychism. But in the dualistic theory
panpsychism is one way of looking at the universe. Listen, I wrote a book called Modern Alchemist, which is now used as a graduate level text in psychology all through Canada. And I can tell you, basically, Jungian concepts, Carl Jung, that book is a book of definitions, like the dark night of the soul, and the stag, and the unicorn, and the forest skull. Soul and spirit within matter. And it's the way we look at things as Christian mystics in the 14th century, in Lamp Springs. And I did the old German into English and added psychological commentary on our current concepts of Jungian psychology. The next book that follows that is titled Magical and Ritual Use of Metaphor, Archetypal Gods in Daily Living. You are either possessed, one single story going on, or you are complex, more than one. Most of us have 5 to 12 basic stories going on. Each one.
Do you think that's mutually exclusive, or do you get into determinism and free will?
Persephone having to go back to Hades once a year. There are basically the Greek technologies suggested that there were 22 stories in the big city, each one representing a path in the tree of life. And path working is when you apply the magic and ritual format, celebration of a myth, to change the movie.
So is that the free will problem? Or the problem whether or not we control our own existence and actions and decisions based on the 22 paths? Or is that law of probability?
Yeah. Once you know what stories you're playing with, do you want those endings? You don't.
So the
change.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's called path working.
Path working is that. So that is in.
Well, I'm going to try and move magic into advanced physics as a study in the movement of altered states for gifts that God gave us down here in a brief moment of time.
So you think that the game of life has the law of probability in it, that we can have these 22 paths based on the law of probability between action and reaction?
We can at some point, possibly in my lifetime, be able to choose what age you want to be and reverse aging. That's Ward Dean, who was Surgeon General of the Marine Corps. He wrote a book called Biological Aging Mechanisms, Clinical Approach. And the conclusion of every single way we measure aging, from telomerase on down, is reversible. Hoorah.
Well, what about the classical ways that, I guess it'd be ontology, I'm not sure, numbers, mathematics, but it's like Neil deGrasse Tyson says he's concerned that our level of species doesn't know the right questions, which makes sense. It goes back to the philosophy.
If you ask the right question, then, Rumpelstiltskin, says me.
Right.
Open.
So
there you go. Ask the right question. And that's where your information
can we talk a little? Well, can't we address that? Let's address that in our definition of who we are, because everybody has a right to create and co-create together. And I'm hoping to get this set up as soon as possible so we can have webinars.
I'm kidding.
Well, it's a mess because we have peripheral questions in cosmology. But this determines,
here's the problem. Mostly, your saints all through history have told you that it's training the mind. That is the purpose of meditation. I immediately, 1977, went out and met Sharon Singh, and I became a satsangi, training my mind. And today, I have discovered brain drivers and other kinds of shortcuts to Grandma's house. But like ritual magic and taking drugs, as opposed to doing it the long way, training the mind, there are big bad wolves out there, and you have to be very careful. And so, training the mind is what we need to do next, because
we have very few,
including me a little.
We have very few scholars such as yourself at the highest level. People think of Stephen Hawking, but that's in theoretical physicists. But you're more of a metaphysical philosopher, but you have Hindu philosophy, and we're looking for the origin of man and God, but our self-worth in the Upanishads or ancient scriptures. I don't know how we're going to do all this. We study world religion.
Voice of the silence. Let's start with that one right now. All of you that are listening to me right now, hear music in your head. Right now, this moment. You can hear it. You don't listen to it very often because I'm trying to say something. That's the shabad, the lost chord. You focus on that. That's called bhajan. Simran and bhajan. You focus on that sound. You will leave your body. And this is not astral projection. This is soul travel where you physically go back home for a brief moment. And my teacher, Sharon Singh, wrote a book called Die to Live. And it's
so you believe articulating is a form of creation, maybe? Articulating sound? Is that what you're saying in our meditation, possibly?
With the Word of God. It's all started with sound. Even your Bible is using sound as a form of technology in relating sound to words in the Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation. Now that
so between dreams and ritual, we can use that in perennial philosophy.
Of feelings, never in terms of things. Dream manual.
So you're more of a shaman. Are you a shaman?
Higher order of information. I'm sorry.
Are you a shaman of sorts in metaphysics, behavioral shaman ritual?
That's John Curtis Gowan. I'm going to try to educate you on concepts here. John Curtis Gowan wrote several very important books. One was called The Development of the Psychedelic Individual. It had nothing to do with psychedelics. Then he went his monumental book called Trance are